Uh, is everyone in here? Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. Please take a seat, make yourself comfortable. My name is Carlos Leon, and today we're going to be talking about Scrum, why it is a framework and not a cookbook. For the latest version of DevOps Pro Europe 2020, we're living in crazy times, so it's great to see how everyone is coming together to make things happen in a time of crisis. I think that we're living in a special time where a lot of us are lucky that we can do this thing. So let's take a moment to be thoughtful and thankful for the opportunity that we've been given today. Very well. If at any moment you guys have any questions, please just let me know. Raise your hands, and I'll be happy to help you. At the end of the talk, we're going to have a 5-minute block for Q&A. But during the talk, if there is something that is not clear, please just let me know, and I'll try to address that. So for those who don't know me, my name is Carlos Leon, originally from Colombia. I'm based off the Netherlands in Amsterdam. And what I do is I help companies as an IT consultant in cloud migration projects, strategic consulting, DevOps processes, cultural transformations, and whatnot, both from the strategic perspective down to the technical aspect of it. Currently, I'm busy working with ING, one of my customers, who is dealing with a cloud migration process to go to Azure DevOps and Azure Cloud. If you are interested in knowing more about this, please do not hesitate to reach out to me on Twitter at Mongrelion, and you can also see what I'm working on right now by checking my blogs on carlosleon.info. That being said, we're also going to be having the questions in Slido, so please make sure that you also join the whole 5 there, and then we can all share the questions together. All right, so let's take a look into the software development process of the industry and why it is necessary to have process in place and how we've been targeting this in the last couple of years. So the idea of software development is that with code, you're going to find the solution to an actual problem, right? So for example, accountancy is a problem that needs a solution. Record tracking is another problem that needs a solution. So if you don't approach systematically how to solve these problems, what you're going to end up is with a lot of risk and probably a little reward. So the industry saw this and they realized that we needed structure for this. So what they decided is, okay, we need to come up with a plan so that we can, at certain stage, we can figure out what the requirements are for a certain project. We need to design a solution for it. Then we need to go into the implementation process. We need to verify that the solution actually works. And eventually, once that is everything is up and ready, up and running, we need to maintain it. Pretty sure that a lot of you recognize what you're seeing on the screen. This is commonly known as waterfall. Taken from the Wikipedia, it says that waterfall is the first known presentation of, or the first time that it was recorded, the process was back in the 29th of June of 1956. Yes, 1956. If you think about it, that's quite a long time ago. And fair enough, a lot of things do not need revisiting. However, given that the software industry moves so fast, knowing that companies today are using a software development process from the past century is a little bit overwhelming, to say the least. In any case, what this methodology is proposing is that at some point we need to investigate, right? We need to figure out what their requirements are. We need to figure out what the actual problem is, what the customer is struggling with. Once we figure that out, then we need to actually design and propose a solution for the problem. We need to then implement this. We need to implement the solution in whatever language, in with whatever technology stack it is decided to do. We need to verify that the solution works, and we need to maintain it, right? So there is a process with multiple stages that is very clear and that brings a lot of perspective. It tries to predict what is going to happen in the future, where are the certain blockers that we could meet along the road, etc., etc. However, since, as we said, this methodology of waterfall is quite old and not up to par with the current requirements of the market, the market was like, okay, guys, we do need something else. We need to revisit this because this process is just way too long and it's broken. So the Agile Manifesto came up, and multiple interpretations of it were done, and multiple processes came up. But for better or worse, Scrum was what took off the strongest in the industry, and probably today is one of the most broadly adopted mechanisms to manage software development processes. So what Scrum is proposing basically is that, okay, we need a plan. We need to collaborate together so that we are able to deliver. But instead of doing this uh, in such a long time frame, instead of delivering a project after 1 year or 3 years, what we're going to do is we're going to break that down into smaller chunks, and we're going to have a product backlog with ideas, and we're going to be try to be flexible so that if at any moment the focus needs to shift, and if at any moment we need to change priorities, we can do so, and we don't have to wait until the very end of the process, which is, as we spoke, a year or 2 or 3 or 5. I don't know. It varies from company to company, but waterfall is definitely a lengthy process where the feedback loop is just way too long. So Scrum is one of the answers to this problem. And if we see it more in perspective, what he's proposing is that at some point we do need to investigate what the problem is. We need to design and propose a solution for the problem. We need to implement it. We need to verify that the solution actually works, and eventually we do need to maintain it. So if we take a look at it, it's quite similar, if not exactly the same idea behind waterfall. And if you think about it, if you take one step further back, is exactly the same idea for any methodology. When you want to deliver software, you need a problem and you need a solution. And to come up with to figure out what the problem is and to figure out what the solution is, or the multiple solutions might be, you do need to investigate about it. We need to design, implement, verify, and maintain it. The major difference, though, between Scrum and Waterfall is that with Scrum, you break it down into smaller chunks so that you can predict easily and faster and quicker what the problems are, what the priorities should be at any point in time during the execution of the project. And not only this, also Scrum is trying to propose a different way of working because, of course, even though you're investigating, designing, implementing, verifying, and maintaining, now you're doing this in a way that hadn't seen before in the market. So you can think about it as a leap of faith. You can think of it as jump. If you're going to deliver a project using waterfall, imagine that you are a software developer and that you're going to deliver this project, and the deadline is 3 years down the line, and the customer doesn't want to know anything about it. Like, they just give you the money and off you go for 3 years, and after 3 years you come back hoping that you have visited all the features, all the bugs, and that you have figured out all the deployment strategies, etc., etc. If you think about it, the leap of faith is quite high. It's quite abysmal, and you don't know if it is going to work or not. From the customer's perspective as well, a lot of us are very technical people. So thinking in terms of business sometimes can be really challenging, both because sometimes we actively stay away from business, but also because sometimes business is pushing us away from the customers, which is definitely something that needs to be revisited in the market and in the industry. We shouldn't put our developers and our operators away from the customers. We should bring them really, really close to each other to increase collaboration and effectiveness. But in any case, if you can think as a software developer, if you're a software developer and you can think as a business owner, imagine that you don't know how to code. Imagine that you forgot all your development skills or all your operational skills and all your engineering knowledge. And you hire someone to develop a mobile application for you, for example. And this person says, sure, it's going to cost you 100K, and I will deliver to you the application in 1 year and a half. And you need to pay upfront. So you pay upfront 100K, and only after 1 year and a half, you receive your application. You can imagine how the risk is way higher, because not only do you know if the application is going to work very late, you also don't know if the market is going to be able to accept your application. Sure, your idea might be clever today, but if you wait 1 year and a half and you bring that application to the market 1.5 years later, you're 1.5 years too late. It might be that the market is not anymore receiving your application. It might be that your idea has already been developed by someone else. So from a business perspective, it's also very risky to develop applications in such long chunks, in such long iterations. So the idea is that you start developing your application as soon as possible, that you take it out into the market as soon as possible. And look, in the very beginning, of course, it's going to be really rough, really, really rough around the edges. Think, for example, Twitter. Back in the day, I don't know if you guys were around when Twitter was just beginning, and the blue whale was seen all the time, right? Because Twitter was written in Ruby on Rails using MySQL, and sure, Ruby on Rails is great for writing applications, also that can scale. But at some point, Ruby just doesn't scale anymore. It doesn't matter how much RAM and CPU you throw at it, how many background jobs you try to schedule to move the load away from the front end and the back end into a scheduling queue. It just with the load that Twitter has, it just doesn't scale. But you cannot build a Twitter at that point in time. If we can transport ourselves back in time, you cannot build a Twitter in 1.5 years and see if that is going to work. The idea is take the idea into the market as soon as possible, and that's what Twitter did. And fair enough, at some point they were very unstable. At some point, a lot of error rate, the error rate was really high. But once they put the idea out in the market, they knew that they had come up with a really good idea. They didn't have to wait 1.5 years to 3 years to try the idea. Sure, it was rough around the edges, but the whole point was to gather as many users as possible. And once they had that customer base, and once they had this idea that was proven that it was going to work, it only needed to be, it needed to it needed to be improved a lot, sure, from a technical perspective, but the concept was proven. So once they had that, then they were able to get more investment. They were able to get more money. They were able to hire better engineers. They were able to revisit the whole architectural structure, all the infrastructure, and they came up with clever ideas, right? So Twitter now is running, a big part of it is running in Scala, and they came up with Mesos. So they came up with scheduling and orchestration, which is quite novel, right? So you get the point, right? The idea is that sure, your software is not going to be high quality from day one, but at least you will be able to test your idea real quick. So the reasons why you want to do Scrum, I'm pretty sure that you guys are very familiar with this, and I might be repeating something that you already know. However, it is important that we highlight it is being agile and doing Scrum, for example, allows you to be very predictable. Since you're working in shorter timeframes, then you can really see sooner the risks and the possible problems that you're going to meet. There is visibility because the way that you structure your teams, the way that you structure your whole department, it is definitely going to help you to lower the risk. And the feedback loop, of course, is way tighter. It's obvious that 1 week or 2 week sprints are shorter than 1-2 years iterations. And the delivery, of course, is faster because the whole idea of Scrum is that at the end of every iteration, you deliver working software, which is not always the case in the current organizations. And we're going to go into detail of that in a bit. So here's a quote that I, from a manager of an organization that I was working with. And we were challenging the way that we were working because obviously we were doing Scrum, but it wasn't working. And so we were having difficult discussions with management. And he says, well, look, Carlos, we are an agile organization, but somewhere in upper management, they do want to see a Gantt chart. So this hit me really hard because, of course, I do want to help my customers, but I also see the fear. And this reminded me immediately. It gave me a flashback of a conversation that I had with my auntie earlier this year. So I'm from Colombia originally, right? So every once in a while, I called all my family to catch up with them. And I was talking to my auntie, and I told her, look, she asked me about my new job and how things were going, and because we hadn't catched up in a long while, and I told her, yeah, everything is doing great. And I have an office job here in Europe. It's not 8 to 6, but it's 9 to 5, and on Fridays I get to work from home. And she was like, "Oh, really? So you basically have a 3 day weekend?" And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. I work on Fridays. Only I work from home." And she's like, "Okay, so you're free on Fridays. That's pretty sweet because then that gives you a lot of time to do a lot of stuff in the house." And I'm like, "No, I still work only from home, but I work. I'm sitting in front of my computer, coding and pushing stuff and managing people and having meetings." And but somehow she wouldn't get it because the way that she was brought up, if you're not in an office, then you're not working. And it at that point I didn't have the energy to stick to it and help her to break through and explain her and help her see how things work in century 21st. And it's exactly the same thing with upper management, the upper management layer that wants to see Gantt charts. As a manager, you will have to put in the effort, you will have to put in the reps so that upper management understands that we don't work with Gantt charts anymore. Sure, we need visibility. Sure, we need to assess risk. Nobody's saying don't do that. Nobody's saying don't put on deadlines. Nobody's saying forget about predictability. Nobody's trying to say that. What we're saying is there is a new way of working, and it doesn't require us to work in 2 year plans, or 5 year plans. That's not how it works today. If you want to do that, then you're going to be too late to the market, and somebody else is going to beat you to it. So for management, for all the people in management out there who are struggling with upper management, um, please reach out. I'm super happy to hear you out if you need someone to complain about it. But also, if you need any sort of assistance with it, I'm super happy. This is exactly this falls right into my lap of the things that I enjoy doing because I do have the energy. I'm very stubborn. Moving on, this company then the guys that the guy that was talking about how they were an agile organization, but they had in upper management someone that needed to see a Gantt chart. What they did is like, okay, so we're gonna do agile, we're gonna do Scrum. We are an agile organization now, so we're gonna do the whole shebang: stand-ups, retros, planning meetings with poker planning. But also, since we do want to please upper management, we also need to have fixed deadlines. So in 2 years down the line, we should have been able to do all these different things. And also inside the teams, we need specialists. So we're going to have the team to manage this tool. We're going to have another team to manage this other tool. And our sprints is going to be of 1 month. And we're going to have these big delivery days to do release this massive one product. So what they were doing really is what is commonly known in the industry as Scrumfall. So you do all the dancing around Scrum. So, we're doing stand-ups and we're doing retros and everything else. But in reality, your whole process is looking exactly just like waterfall. The only thing is that you do some of the Scrum things to make you believe like you're doing Scrum. And look, I understand why this happens. There is a lot of misunderstanding on why Scrum doesn't work. Yeah, what? So it's more than Scrumfall is Scrum fail. And I can explain you why this is not working for your company. Look, a lot of the managers, like the top level management, I'm talking C level here, they go to a conference and they see it, and they read Hacker News and they read it, and they talk to their friends in their cocktails and they hear it. Waterfall is not working, and you need to adopt agile methodologies. So 10 years ago or 15 years ago was Scrum. Nowadays is DevOps. Nowadays is serverless. Nowadays is containers, Kubernetes. Nowadays is public cloud. Nowadays is hybrid cloud, unikernels, I don't know, quantum. And they think, okay, we adopt this and we will be exactly as productive as other companies. So they see, for example, Spotify and the whole tribe thing. They say, okay, we adopt the tribe thing and now we're Spotify. But are you though? Not really. Not really, because you see, this framework of Scrum or Agile or anything else that has to do with organizational things, you cannot just take it and pretend that it's going to work for your company. Your company has a history and has a culture, and you need to look at it for what it is. It is culture made by people, made by your employees, made by your management level, made by the people that make the coffee, the people that clean the office, the office managers, the engineers, the social media managers. Like, everyone makes the company culture. And if you think that you can change the culture of a company overnight, then you're dreaming. And I'm sorry, but this is reality check. You need to really reconsider. Take, for example, the I don't know if there is anybody in the session from South America. Um, how would I know that? It really is a pity that I cannot see hands. But if there is anybody from South America like me, I would like to know. And maybe I've heard that maybe in Eastern Europe this example might work as well. And that is, if you think about it, when I came to the Netherlands, I wanted to go from Amsterdam to Eindhoven. That is a city in the south. So what you do is you go to the train station, you buy a ticket. With this ticket, you need to check in, and that means that there is a QR reader or a magnet reader. I have no idea how it works, but you present it in front of the thing, and it beeps beep, and then you're checked in. And when you step outside of the station, you need to check out. When you're in the train, there might be someone to come to check, but there might not. Also, to get into the train station and to get into the train, there is no one checking for it. Why? Because the system here works based on trust. If you ask, if you run a census in the Netherlands and in other Western countries, especially Scandinavian countries, if there if there is if you ask them, people normally trust the system. There is always space for improvement, and people have always reasons to complain, even if they have it really good. But the consensus is that they trust the system and that the corruption levels are really low. The same way works with the public transport, for example. People just do the right thing, and they're like, okay, we assume that people are going to do the right thing, so we're not going to put machines so that they can walk into the station. We are just going to let everyone in, and they can step in and out, and we trust that everyone is going to buy their ticket, that they're going to check in, and they're going to check out. When I saw this, immediately I thought this would never work in Colombia, like at all. Like this because we don't have a trust system. So any how do you say, politician from Colombia could come to Europe and see the system, and they're like, oh, it works like that in Sweden, it works like that in Finland. Okay, I'm going to bring the system, and it's going to work exactly the same way in Colombia. This person needs to do a reality check, because the culture in our country, unfortunately, is not like that. It doesn't work like that. We don't have a trust culture, we have a distrust culture. We're always thinking how the system is trying to screw me over, and how can I screw over the system, because it goes both ways. People are trying to screw the system over, and the system is trying to screw you over as well. So the same way with Scrum or with DevOps or SRE or any cultural and organizational framework, you cannot just bring it into your company. And I've seen it so many times that companies just, okay, we want to be agile. What do we do? Do we do Scrum? Do we do Kanban? Do we do Holacracy? We do everything, and we do it by the book, just letter by letter, pa, 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 pa. And in the end, it doesn't really work. And what people are doing is working around the system, because I open, close, close. That's not how we do things around here, right? So people are super afraid of change. And when the change is coming from management, especially, is really, really hard. So you need support both from the top and from the bottom. You need people that are willing to put in the effort from management, but also people from within the teams put in the effort to change things around, to show, hey guys, let's not do it like that. Let's be open. Let's communicate. We should do this meeting. We should really make it happen like this and like that. Let's try to estimate it properly. Let's try to take everything into consideration. Let's talk more to each other. Let's try not to hinder the work, and things like this. You need the support from all over the place. So I'm gonna take a little sip of this because I'm running dry. Oh, yes. Okay, so moving on. Here are some of the Scrum concepts. I took all this from the Wikipedia, just the information that is publicly available, and you can see that it's quite a lot. So if you want to do Scrum by the book, you will have to introduce the following concepts into your company. sprint, sprint planning, daily scrum or daily stand-up, sprint review, sprint retrospective, backlog, backlog refinement, planning session, product backlog, sprint backlog, epic, feature, chore, bug, user story, stakeholder, story point. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh, it's quite a lot, and this is only like what I managed to like scan through, but it's much more. It's much more. And not only do you need to understand the concept, then you need to apply them, and you need to apply them good. So it's quite a lot, and it's quite overwhelming. So my my point being, Scrum is not easy. It's not hard, but it's also not that easy. And you don't need to take everything by the book. So where do we go from here? Look, scrap everything and just take whatever works for you. That's a framework that really works for everyone. Sure, it's not easy to come to a company and say, "Hey guys, we're going to do Scrum, but we're going to do it our own way," because that is also going to raise some flags and is going to trigger a lot of people's insecurities. It's like, "Oh, of course, there was something good, and now we're going to screw it with our own culture." Sure, this is a risk. I'm not saying no. This is definitely a risk, but if you hire the right people to help you through the process, then you can really get to a point where you are very productive with your team. And look, you don't need to use all the Scrum things that are out there. That's why I'm saying that Scrum is a framework and not a cookbook. You don't need to do everything by the letter. You can just pick the things that work for you and for your company, and then you can take it further. For example, how about you just hack together a bunch of user stories and maybe think ahead maybe 3-4 sprints and have that in a backlog and have a planning session on how you're going to do your sprints. Do 1 week sprints and then start with that, and don't do anything else. Don't try to refine, don't try to do epics, don't try to do retro, don't try to do none of the rest. Just user stories, planning, and the backlog. That's it. So the takeaways from this is, look, if you can, drop everything and start clean. If you already have Scrum set in place for your whole company or your whole organization, and you are 500 plus employees, maybe it's not idea to drop everything. It's definitely not viable because you will definitely steal production, and that's not the idea. But what works the best and is being proved is you take one team, just the one team. You take a team that is really focused. You take a team that is very productive, that the productivity level is high, and that they have a high yield of story points. For example, if you're already doing Scrum, engineers that are quite talented, that are quite senior, their emotional intelligence is high, their collaboration is good, communication skills are great. You're going to take this team, is going to be between 3 and 6 people. The smaller, the better. And you're going to give them the task to use Scrum as it works the best for them. And you say, hey, this is what Scrum offers. This is the list of things that Scrum offers. Strip it naked and only take the things that work for you. And they're going to come up with a list. But because they are used to working in a certain way, they are still going to hold on to a lot of things. Your challenge as a manager is to strip that list even further. So let's say that they pick 5 items and they say, look, we thought about this really hard, and we think that from Scrum we need these 5 elements. And then try to challenge that and say, can we do 3? Can we knock 2 items off this list so that we can only do 3 things from Scrum and we don't do anything else? So, okay, we need stand-ups. Okay, fair enough. You maybe in the current state of your project you do need stand-ups, maybe not. We need ad hoc stand-up, for example. That's an option. We don't do stand-up every day. We do stand-up when we believe that it is necessary. And once that team is settled in that dynamic, then you try to scale it to another team, and to another team, and to another team, until the whole company starts to catch up. And the thing is, what works for one team doesn't necessarily mean that will work for another team, especially when the domain is different. Operations and development doesn't work the same way. It would be nice, and DevOps has tried to do that, but we're not there yet. So what I'm trying to say is, it could be that one team says we do need retrospectives because this is the way we work, and we need, for this very specific case, we do need it. Okay, you guys do that. Some other team is like, you know what, the work that we do is really hard to estimate, and we've been trying to estimate for the past 2 years, and we just suck at it, and it doesn't matter how many workshops we do to estimate better, we just keep on missing it. So we would like to just work without estimates. We would like to not put any story points on the stories, or we would like to change the story points for hours because that's easier for us. Or we would like to limit it to 5 stories a sprint, or 2 stories a sprint, or 1 story per person, something like that. Just be more flexible. So allow each team to pick what works best for them. Uh, consult someone with experience. There are plenty of agile coaches out there that can tell you, that can explain you how things can work for your company, and they will make the same point. Scrum, you need to adapt it to your own company. You need to adapt it. You need to take the best of Scrum that works the best for your company, because it's not going to be the same for everyone. But sometimes you do not have that perspective, and that perspective can be brought from someone that has seen many different Scrum setups or many Agile setups, and they can bring that perspective to you. That's a lot of value. Just pay for it. Say that you hire them for a month or for 3 months. That is going to save you organizational and structural problems down the line 3-5 years. So then you made your value already on the first year. Look into other models like Kanban and Holacracy. I'm going to be leaving the link to the slides afterwards, and then you can download it, and the rest of the links are there. These are agile models that try to be much more flexible than Scrum, but they could also not work for you. So just read up on everything and see what works the best for you, and just collage it all together. And the last point that I wanted to make is that deadlines are good, unless they're too far out in the distance. I've seen that a lot of organizations, if you don't set deadlines for certain teams, they will slack, and that's fair enough. Some people are aware that they need deadlines, so they like having deadlines. Some other people do not like deadlines, so and it's counterproductive for them if they have them. Some people cannot deal with the stress of it. You need to find a point in between. You need to find a place in the middle, especially if the deadline is based on actual customer feedback that is more understandable. A lot of the inconformity that comes from the floor is because management is making promises uh, with other management, with other managers about deadlines. It's like, yeah, sure, we will deliver this feature on December the 1st, and they don't consult with the teams. There is not even a real customer behind that. There is only management talking to management, and there is a detachment from what the customer actually needs and what the developers want to deliver. And then there is the deadline in between, and this can really hurt the team morale, the morale of all the teams on the floor. So beware of that. If you're going to set deadlines, make them true, and be transparent with your organization, because in the end, this is what is going to make a true performing team or true performing organization. If you're transparent, no bullshit manager, then your team is really going to be thriving. Okay, that will be the end of the talk. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm going to be looking into the Slido now to see if there are any questions. Where would that be? If you give me a second. Oh, we are in Chrome. Yes, I have Slido here. Maybe I can just bring it here. Okay. Scrum in a small team is always worth to use Scrum. What is your experience? Maybe there are more effective ways. Yeah, for sure. If you're doing Scrum with 2-3 developers, that's fine, as long as you're keeping it to the bare minimum, right? So I've worked in a team of 2 people, so me being the senior developer, and then a junior developer, and a project manager, and we had daily stand-ups, and it was probably the best high yielding team that I've worked in my whole career. But we didn't do like the project manager made sure that we had all the focus that we could get. So we didn't have to refine the stories. The only thing that we had to do was to estimate it. The project manager was really good at translating customer requirements into user stories. So it was really clear to us what needed to happen on a technical basis, and we were able to estimate that. So, for example, he would write something like, as a user, I want to be able to log in using a login form with the credentials that I used from the whatever. And we're like, oh, okay, so we need a login form. So we're going to need the view, we're going to be the controller, the model, the update, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that is going to be 4 points. What do you think? Yeah, sure, man. It sounds like 4 story points. And then we would just, me and my buddy, we would just estimate that because our project manager like, hey, guys, can you sit down and estimate the last 5 stories that I put in the backlog? We would do that. And it was really, really effective. 1 week sprints. And we deliver so many features. I don't think that I've delivered so many features anywhere else in my whole career. So yeah, sure, Scrum, but keep it really tight. Don't bring retrospective. Don't bring poker plan. Just keep it really really nice and short. That should be good enough. Good question, by the way. Thank you. That made me remember good times when I was able to get stuff done. DevOps teams in Scrum. How do you plan? Wait, hold on. How do I know which? Okay, I'm gonna answer questions by how recent they were. Okay, so that was the first one. Okay, what if you have more teams that work with one project? Typical example: backend, Android, iOS team, same projects, but only some tasks intersect. How to adopt Scrum? Well, first thing that comes to mind is that you really want to keep your sprints short, so nothing longer than 1 week. I've seen how companies, even with 2 week sprints, where I'm currently working on, we find out that we need a certain feature or a bug fix from a different team. And we discovered that on day 2 of our sprint of 2 weeks. And so we bring it to them, to the team that actually needs to fix it. And they also have a 2 week sprint. So we need to wait at least 2 weeks before they start working on it. This hurts too much. So don't do that. And if you find that the task intersect more often than they don't, then you shouldn't be doing Scrum. Then you should be doing something like Kanban or Holacracy. But Scrum, the concept of sprint immediately breaks your workflow. So you need to do what works for your company. And in this case, uh, again, if the tasks intersect very often, then Scrum is not what you need. Sure, you know that you can still do daily stand-ups even if you're not doing Scrum, right? And you can still do user stories. You can still estimate. You can do all of the things without doing Scrum. You can just pick whatever works for you. That's it. There's a lot of freedom in that. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Okay, so DevOps teams in Scrum, how do you plan, estimate urgent operational work? There is a couple of ways that you can go about this. One is you can have a placeholder story that says, okay, operational work. And then you say, okay, this always takes us this many story points. So we're just going to keep this story ongoing. However, this feels to me, I've seen this. For some teams, it works. For most of the teams, they think that it sucks. And I'm with them. I don't see how a DevOps team in Scrum or any other, like, I don't see how the concept of the DevOps gets affected by this, though. Like, any team gets affected by urgent operational work that is just outside of the how do you say, outside of the sprint. Even if you're just an operational team, or if you're a development team that is also responsible for the workloads in production, you estimate 10 story points and suddenly production is down, and now you need to stop everything that you're doing to fix production. That's it. You don't estimate or plan urgent operational work. You just make it happen. That's it. If you see that your velocity in a certain sprint decreased by 50% or by 80%, you know why that happened. You know what the cause of it was. But in my experience, you cannot just plan this thing. This it just doesn't happen. Also, some people use the concept of chores or bugs to simply do work that cannot be estimated. but estimating something that you don't know how long it's going to take is is everyone's question. So the next question is: in my experience, most Scrum failures were related to problems in backlog creation and success, where was enormous job put into backlog creation. How to find good balance? The good balance, my friend, is by keeping your scope really, really short. Most of the time, you see backlogs that have features that have been in the backlog for years, like 2, 3 years. The story is there for. If that story has been in the backlog for 3 years, it's a useless story. We don't need that. Your backlog should be limited to 2, 3 sprints. Otherwise, you're just, it not only does it hurt the team morale, because some people are looking forward to those stories, and every time that you're getting to that story, finally it's like, okay, 5 more stories and I'm gonna get to work in that really nice feature that I'm looking forward to. Only to see that new stories get added and they don't get prioritized. It hurts the team morale. um, I can see how if you write a user story really good, and if you estimate it, then it's easier for everyone to see if this is worth working on. Okay, so here's an example. Let's say that we're going to be working on developing the same login form for our user. Just a really simple example. You want to have the story really well defined and written, and that is the job of, say, the person that actually heard about it the first. So it could be the PO, it could be the project manager, the product owner, it could be one of the engineers. Actually, they spoke with the customer, and 10 customers came up with the same requirement, and the engineer happened to be the person that was talking to the customers in one of the sessions, for example, in an onboarding session. And then the engineer was like, oh wow, we do actually need a login form. I hadn't thought about that. We hadn't thought about that. Okay, so I'm going to write the story now. So the person writes down the story, is refined, and then together with the team, they estimate it. And that's how you keep your backlog. The backlog is everyone's responsibility, and as long as you keep that in mind and everyone else is on the same page, then your backlog is going to be nice and healthy. But again, keep the scope of the backlog short, because a lot of people, like every single team that I've seen, overdoes it, and it just sucks. Okay, let's move on because we're running out of time. 2 more minutes. First steps to pursue your career in a Scrum Master role. Take the exam, the course, the certification, and try to get as much experience as possible. If you want to, if you're looking into becoming a Scrum Master, you need the actual hands-on experience. So talk to your managers, talk to your team, to your POs and everyone else, and tell them what your ambition is, and hopefully they will be supportive enough to help you into that. If possible, also ask the current Scrum Master for an apprenticeship. So say, I wanna shadow you to see how you do it. I want to really become this Scrum Master person. So can you please help me? And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people will be happy to take you in. The last question before we wrap it up is: who plays crucial role in a team? Should a Scrum Master lead? Who plays crucial role in a team? Everyone, dude. Everyone plays a crucial role. The person that delivers the feature, the person that writes the feature, the person that talks to the customer, the person that helps everyone come together and organize them. In my opinion, everyone should lead, but I'm not exactly sure what kind of leadership you're looking for here, man. Can you please elaborate? Because do you want to lead in the feature development? Do you want to lead in the team building event? Do you want to lead in engineering efforts? What do you want to lead on? Like, you can be a leader in many aspects. So it will be good to know what exactly you mean. But just to take a leap of faith here. If you want to lead on the engineering side of things and you're an engineer, you should just do it, right? If you think like, oh, okay, we're doing this thing with this technology, but I believe that this is the better technology, just do it, man. If you have the skills and the know how to do it, just go ahead, write your POC and demo it to your team. If you are more of a manager, if you're in a management position and you think that the team should change the way they organize themselves, just demonstrate that there are better ways, and lead by example. So everyone is playing a crucial role in the team. Maybe start with that one. All right, we have arrived to the end of our session. I want to thank everyone for making it today. This was really interesting. I would have hoped to see your faces, but I appreciate that you were so engaging in the Q&A. It means a lot. I hope to see you next time, and I hope that you guys stay safe, stay home, stay healthy.